Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another broadcast from where I sit. I am your host, Dr. C. I know we've been off for a little bit here of late, and we're going to explain that to you right now. My technology, my old computer, finally went put on me, and so I went. I had to go ahead and buy myself a new computer. Went on ahead and got myself a new laptop. So I am broadcasting to you from on the road inside my truck. So welcome to the show. Welcome to the broadcast. And we're not going to waste any time. We are going to get straight to it because we have a lot that we need to share with you. We need to get you prepared for what's happening next. And as you can probably tell, if you're paying attention, there's a lot happening and a lot happening at once. But we are going to keep you focused on what matters for you and your family. As you can tell from this next slide, and we've said this time and time again, we are going to celebrate Black history throughout the whole year and beyond for as long as God willing, I'm able to do this show for you. So, as we've said in the past, and we're going to say it again, we are going to celebrate Black history on every last one of our podcasts if we can, because Black history is American history. Black history is American history. So we are going to go out of our way to bring you these Black history stories, this Black excellence, to let you know that you too are excellent as long as you put your mind, body, and spirit to it. Who knows, we might be telling your history in the very near future. Anyway, so let us get straight to it. Just wanted to remind you that Black history is American history, and we are going to study it and celebrate it every broadcast moving forward. Okay, so I wanted to do economics for Black folks. Of course, our main audience for this broadcast are African Americans, people of color, to let you guys know that we see you, we know you, and we are going to give you information that is going to help you to build wealth, to do some collective wealth building, and to learn the various aspects of the economy so that you can take advantage of this information that we're going to give you and the strategies that we're going to give you so that you can build uh, economics and wealth for you and your family. So here's what we're covering today. Musk and Trump's lies about the 5K dollar stimulus checks. By the way, if I remember correctly, that that total has gone up to around $7,500. I'm just here to let you know right now it is a scam, and we're going to explain to you why it is. We're going to talk about the importance of investing in Black banks. And by the way, if you live in the United States of America, I can assure you that there is a Black owned or Black run bank somewhere around your community. So we'll talk about that as well. And then we're going to get into the real nitty gritty of everything, where we're going to talk about the monetary system and how it was brought about and why. In other words, we're going to talk about the monetary system, i.e., we are going to talk about the Federal Reserve Bank and the central banking systems across the globe. We'll share with you our analysis of the state of the dollar on the global stage. By the way, this is also very important. I'm here to let you know that everything that happens in this country economically does not happen in a vacuum. What is going on overseas affects us, and what's going on here affects the rest of the globe. So we are interconnected in that way, and there is no getting around it. Okay. Why all this information matters to us as Black people. And then, of course, I will give you my final thoughts at the end of this presentation. So strap in and let's see if we can teach you a little bit about what's going on in this country and in the rest of the world. So here we go, talking about Doge. By the way, don't believe the hype. Let me move this over here. These 5K stimulus checks is just a ruse, right? They're not going to give anybody any stimulus checks, and I'm going to explain why. Could President Trump issue Doge stimulus checks? The idea of 5,000 refunds from the ongoing drive to reduce federal spending has been floated, but don't add that bonus to your account just yet. That's because Doge, that is the Department of Government Efficiency. By the way, Doge, it's not a real department. This entity does not have any real power. Elon Musk, who runs this thing, doesn't have any real power. He is an unelected official. The people he has working for him are also unelected, and they don't have any real power to do what they're doing. The only reason why it seems as though that they are or do have the power to do what they're doing is because President Trump has deemed it so. But technically, they really have no power. Just want to share that with you first. So ideally, Doge must meet its 2 trillion savings goal to make the kickback feasible. And when we're talking about the kickback, we're talking about this $2 trillion, well, actually, it's around $4 trillion tax cut for the very, very rich, the very, very wealthy, and very, very powerful corporations. By the way, that is the reason why they are cutting these federal employees, cutting these different programs. That's why they're trying to get rid of Medicaid. That's why they're trying to get rid of SNAP, which is is food stamps. And they are going to try and get rid of and cut Medicare. And yes, I am so angry that I have to tell you this, but they are also going to try and cut Social Security. I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you that there's more than a third of Americans that are collecting Social Security right now, and I am one of them. They are going to try and cut Social Security. By the way, a revolt will definitely happen if they try to do that. And I guarantee you they are going to try in order to give this $4 trillion tax cut to Trump's buddies and friends and family members who all happen to be billionaires. They don't need the money. We do. Okay. By the way, and that accomplishment is something even Elon Musk, the unofficial leader of Doge, said may not be doable back in January. And by the way, it is not doable. So why in the world are they floating this idea of 5K stimulus checks? Okay. In order for this to work, the Trump administration is considering giving 20% of Doge savings to citizens. His comments came a day after Musk said he would confer with Trump about the idea. This, by the way, they had this conversation several weeks ago. So In order to get this to work, which, by the way, I said it's nothing more than a ruse. Let me move this over here. To fund the $5,000 checks for every eligible household, it is going to require 395, let's just round it up to about $4 billion in the short term. That this is a figure astronomically higher than the resources Musk claims to have secured. By the way, they're not even close to cutting 395 or $400 billion from the budget. They're not even close to that just yet. There have also been concerns over the inflationary impact such payments could have, and we are going to talk about inflation worries later on in our presentation this evening. There have also been concerns over the inflationary impact such payments could have. Michael Martin, Vice President of Market Strategy at Trading Block, said that while the savings may be achievable, look, I think he is being optimistic, to say the least, right? A more important question to ask is whether these checks would ultimately be good for Americans and the economy at large. Now, the reason why I wanted to make sure that that statement was in there is because these checks, even if they have decided to actually try to do this, the inflation rate, which is already going up, by the way, Trump promised on the campaign trail that he will bring inflation down on day one. Of course, the opposite is happening. Inflation's going up. Okay? It's going up. But we also need to explain to you what inflation actually is and why it is a problem for our global financial system. It's not something that is bad for the United States. This is bad for most nation states around the globe. Inflation is a horrible, horrible thing that every country would like to avoid. But before we get to that, I do want to make sure that I share with you the information I find about Black banks in the Atlanta metro area. And the reason I wanted to talk about this and include banking into our discussion this evening is because we actually do believe that African Americans, Black folks in this country, should be patronizing their local Black owned banks. And the reason why I say so is that if you give them your business and you get yourself in a situation where your credit is better, and by the way, these Black owned banks would help you with that to improve your credit so that you could get the various loans, excuse me, that is needed for buying a car or buying a home, which happens to be the coup de grace in terms of assets. Everybody should be able to buy a home if they want to buy one. And these Black owned banks could help you to attain such a goal, right? So here are the list of the Black owned banks in the Atlanta metro area. I just wanted to list these five. There's the Carver State Bank, which is right out of Savannah, Georgia. Citizens Trust Bank, which is in the Atlanta metro area. Credit Union of Atlanta in the city of Atlanta. The Omega Psi Phi Credit Union, which is in Lawrenceville, which is where I live. So I am going to, when I get back from on the road this upcoming week, Tuesday evening, I'm going to make myself an appointment to go visit Citizens Trust Bank or Omega Psi Phi Credit Union and the First Choice Credit Union, just to see what these banks are like, and then I'm going to report back to you what I found. But yes, it is important for us to patronize these banks, do business with them, and encourage them to do business with you. All right. So, the history of black banks in America, and I wanted to give you a little bit of a backdrop in terms of why black banking is important. Um, so, against a backdrop of racist practices in the banking industry, including denial of access, black owned banks arose to help disenfranchise black Americans in 1888. Capital Savings Bank in Washington, D.C. became the first black bank to open, and the Savings Bank of the Grand Fountain United Order of True Reformers in Richmond, Virginia became the first chartered black owned bank in the United States, later opening in 1889. More black owned banks did follow, but here's the reason why these black owned banks were necessary in our past. And by the way, not only in our distant past, but in our recent past as well. And the reason why is because white controlled banks denied black folks loans. And here in our recent past, and even when they were willing to give us loans, they were loans with astronomical high interest rates, which in the most part, a lot of black Americans who took out these loans would usually default on them. It was designed that way to force them to default, right? This is the reason why I am advocating for your business to be done with black owned banks. At the very least, go and find out how they do business, what products they have for you, and see if you can build a relationship with them. I'm just saying, give these black owned banks a chance. And, and I think this is important. In Trump's America, he is trying to resegregate whites from people of color, most notably black people in this country. He wants to take us back to the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. Of course, we are not going to allow him to do that. But at the same time, I think it is important for us, the black community, to keep our hard earned dollars in our community, which is the reason why we're starting with these banks. Now, the other thing that I wanted to share with you about these black banks is that in the past, these black banks were usually run or had on their boards or in their charters white men who would control how the bank was operated. And these white men took advantage of these banks and bankrupted the banks and kept all the money for themselves. That is the reason why I'm saying go to see and find out if these banks are owned and operated by black people in your community. Okay. That's why I say you should go and do your own homework. So make sure you do that before you decide on who you want to bank with. Which brings us to the Federal Reserve Bank. Don't know if you knew this, but the Federal Reserve Bank was started from a meeting in 1910, six men, Nelson Aldrich, A. Platt Andrew, Henry Davison, Arthur Shelton, Frank Vanderlip, and Paul Warburg met at the Jekyll Island Club. By the way, for those of you who live in Georgia, you know where Jekyll Island is. It's right there on the coast, the east coast of Georgia, not too far from Savannah, Georgia. Okay, to write a plan. They met at the Jekyll Island Club off the coast of Georgia to write a plan to reform the nation's banking system. Now, why were they doing this? Because the banking system in America was, I mean, it was chaotic. um, Andrew Jackson, President Andrew Jackson, tried to get rid of banking altogether because he hated banks, right? And so this is the reason why these men met to come up with this Federal Reserve Bank. By the way, this is important. They came up with this bank because they knew that European nations around the world also had central banks. So they wanted to make sure that they were part of this central banking system. Okay. So they reformed the nation's banking system. The meeting and its purpose were closely guarded secrets, and the participants did not admit that the meeting occurred until the 1930s. So you ought to be asking a question of why did they wait so long to let the rest of us know that they were meeting in secret about this bank? And the reason why is because central banking at this time was a dirty word. Okay. But the plan written on Jekyll Island laid a foundation for what would eventually be the Federal Reserve System. So the Federal Reserve Bank, if you're not sure what it has a dual mandate. And this dual mandate was shaped in the 1970s. So it's a recent thing that happened. It's a fairly recent mandate, which was instituted by Congress. The first mandate is to maintain maximum employment, and the second is to keep prices stable while in long-term interest rates at moderate levels. I'll say this again: to maintain maximum employment and to keep prices stable while in long-term interest rates are kept at moderate levels. That's their dual mandate. People and businesses need to be reasonably confident that prices will remain relatively constant over time so they can plan for the future. Now, I want to ask you a very specific question. Today, right now, in Trump's America, are you confident that things are relatively stable in terms of prices, employment, and interest rates? If the answer to that question is no, you are not alone. Everybody is worried about employment, inflation, and interest rates. And if you take a look at what's happening in Trump's America, it is a straight up chaotic roller coaster ride because of his threatening of tariffs and laying off wholesale government workers in all departments. The man is a raging bull in a china shop right now. And the china shop is full employment, stable interest rates, and low inflation. Okay. It is a complete mess right now. Which brings us to the dollar. Now, just in case you do not know, the dollar as it stands right now, and by the way, the dollar is directly linked to what we're talking about here in terms of the dual mandate for the Federal Reserve, keeping inflation rates down, full employment, and stable interest rates. The dollar is directly connected to all of that. But the dollar is also the reserved currency in world trade. In other words, most of the globe, when they trade in energy or anything else, The reserve currency is the dollar. This is what they usually trade with. But there are clouds on the horizon. And these clouds are coming from these BRICS nation bloc, uh, which intends to do about the dollar or reserve currency. What they really want to do is get rid of the dollar as the reserved currency in trade. And what if they are successful in doing so? What they really want to do is bring about a basket of currencies to trade with. And in this basket of currencies, right, the dollar is not among them. Just in case you do not know, in terms of BRICS, it is a trading alliance, and they consist of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. By the way, just in case you don't know, the BRICS bloc, trading bloc, is expanding. They are up to about 23 countries that are a part of this trading bloc right now. And the BRICS bloc represents more than half of the population that lives on this planet. Now, here is my next question. What if the BRICS trading bloc, these 23 nations, are able to become successful in replacing the dollar as the reserved currency? What do you think is going to happen to the value of the dollar? We're going to get back to that question in just a little bit, but I do want you to think about that if they are successful in replacing the dollar as the reserved currency in world trade. So, before you answer that question, let's talk about the state of these tariffs and the health of the dollar. So, a tariff is nothing more than a tax on goods that are being shipped inside the country or outside the country, depending on which nation is putting tariffs on goods and services coming in and out of the country. President Trump, and I really hate calling him that because he is not president of the United States, he's a stooge. The real guy who's running the country is probably Elon Musk. And he is no genius either. Trust me, they're both clowns. But because he is threatening these tariff wars with Canada, Mexico, China, the EU, or anybody he hates, and by the way, that would be the whole planet, I will go on the record to say that the United States of America is an isolated country right now. We literally have no friends anymore. And because we have no friends, we have no influence. And with these tariffs, him threatening them or putting on tariffs is definitely going to destroy the dollar and the ability of the USA to do business in an interconnected trading system. They're talking about America first. Let's just try America last. It is important for the United States of America to be able to exercise its soft power. There is soft power, and then there's hard power. Hard power is the United States military. It's still the best military on the planet. There's no getting around that. I served in the military. It's still number one. But hard power, you can only take it so far, right? Soft power is where it's at. And Trump has destroyed our soft power. And China is replacing the United States in terms of being able to be effective in the use of soft power. Just in case you didn't know, these BRICS nations, right? China is the number one country in bringing in these other nation states into BRICS so that they can wield soft power over the EU and the United States. In fact, the European Union is going to have to make a decision. Do they want to stand alone without the United States? Or do they want to get along to go along, or to go along to get along? Okay. I think Europe has a major decision to make, whether or not that they really need to put the United States all by itself, where it is no longer a friend to the first world, and the first world would be those G7 nations, right? And then most of them are from the EU. Okay. So let's get back to the question, right? Talking about the dollar. What will happen to the dollar if they were able to to replace the dollar as the reserved currency in world trade? Well, there's one thing that I need to share with you that's important, and that's debt. Okay. The United States of America is carrying around 26 to 29 trillion dollars worth of debt. That debt equals 26 to 29 trillion dollars, 26 to 29 trillion dollars floating around in our global monetary system. If the United States of America were ever to figure out a way to pay off their debts, and they did so, then that $29 trillion would disappear from the global trading system. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning this to you is important. If they paid off all that debt, what happens to all the money? It disappears. It goes away. It's worthless. It's gone. The monetary system, i.e., the dollar, the yen, or whatever else that's out there, the monetary system is largely built on faith, better known as fiat currency, fiat being Latin for faith, right? And if you remember correctly, back in 2008, 2009, of the financial crisis, the American people almost lost all faith in a financial system, i.e., they lost faith in the monetary system. Okay. I would make the argument that if the BRICS trading bloc were able to be successful in removing the dollar as the reserved currency, that dollar would eventually become worthless. It would become worthless. In other words, the inflation would skyrocket if they got rid of the dollar as the reserve currency. And if inflation skyrockets, I mean, basically the amount of money in your pocket, you might as well just throw it in a fireplace because that's all it's good for. So the question here, what does this mean for Black folks? Well, it means this. You need to understand how the global monetary system works. And I will give you an example. Back in the day, when I was in the Coast Guard, we traveled all over the Western Hemisphere. And of course, we've been to a lot of different places. And we traveled to Mexico, to the Caribbean, to Venezuela, et cetera, et cetera. We've been all over, right? But every time we got liberty to go ashore, and we would go ashore to buy, souvenirs and stuff to bring home to our families, every time we went ashore to do business in Mexico, Venezuela, Jamaica, or the Bahamas, or any other place, all of these countries, the vendors in these countries wanted to be paid not in their local currency, but they wanted to be paid in dollars. And back, by the way, this was back in the 1980s when I was traveling all over the place, serving my country. They wanted to be paid in dollars. And why? Because the strength of the dollar was crazy back then, right? If you gave somebody in Mexico a dollar, that dollar would equal probably about 35 pesos, which is the equivalent for to the dollar for the Mexican peso. Okay, that's why they want to be paid in dollars, because those dollars can go a long way. Now, why do I use this example as a means of information for my Black brothers and sisters? It's absolutely important for you to pay attention to what's happening in the global monetary system, in the trading system, so that you could protect you and yours and your wealth. By the way, all of these, the monetary system is a global monetary system, and everybody trades using the monetary system based on which currency is stronger compared to another. If BRICS were able to replace the dollar as the reserved currency, you better believe that I am thinking about getting my paycheck in whatever currency is the strongest from that BRICS trading block. This is the reason why I'm sharing this information with you. Okay, that's what it means. Are we there yet? We are not there yet, but it is something that you need to pay attention to. That's why we're sharing this information with you. So my final thoughts. Of course, we are going to make sure that we give you the information that's necessary to protect you and yours and your wealth going forward. I urge you, if you haven't done so already, to make sure you establish your emergency fund. We have established our emergency fund. My family, I just haven't told them yet. But we have established our emergency fund. Our emergency fund is going to be consist of about $1,000. Whatever is important to you, how much you need to put in your emergency fund, that's up to you and your family. We are starting with $1,000. And each member of that family is going to put $5 into that emergency fund until we reach that goal. And then we'll move on to our other financial goals, talking about collective wealth building, right? Starting with the emergency fund first. Second, I was incorrect in letting you guys know that the the economic blackout that we had a couple of weeks ago was not successful. It actually was very successful. And so we need to keep doing it. In fact, Amazon is being boycotted this week coming up. So boycott Amazon unless unless you have a small business, right? And you do business with Amazon, of which I am one of those people. Okay, I'm going to be publishing 3 books with Amazon, so it's kind of a give and take right there. Just, if you're going to boycott Amazon, just make sure that you do your homework so that you don't hurt any Black small businesses that has Amazon as a partner. We'll talk about Amazon a little bit later in the weeks because they are unique in terms of how they are looking at our political system as it is right now. And lastly, and then I'm gonna let you guys go. We do have our protest coming up on March 14th. It is the March on Washington. They are expecting over 1 million people to show up, and I really hope you guys do. I am definitely going to try to make it myself. And it is March. It's I'm gonna have to get back to the website. I think I shared it with you and the guys in the past. I will bring it back up. It escapes me right now, but it's March. No, it's nowmarch.org. That's it. Nowmarch.org. That's the website if you need more information. Please make sure you participate in this protest against this illegal regime called the Trump administration. This administration is full of nothing but a bunch of crooks. It is organized crime, parading and charading around as a presidential administration. They are nothing of the sort and nothing but a band of criminals. Okay? So make sure you make it to DC on the 14th and bring your friends and your family and as many people as you possibly can. All right, so I'm going to wrap things up. As you guys know, you can interact with us on TikTok, Dr. C58 on TikTok. You can interact with us on Blue Sky. That's Dr. 050658 bluesky.social. You can see all of the information right there. Please interact with us in our social media platform. We look forward to your questions, comments, or anything that you would like to say. Okay. If you disagree with what I'm talking about, disagree. We'll discuss it. Okay. And we'll bring up your questions and comments on our next broadcast. And as usual, we thank you for joining us for this broadcast from where I sit. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, right? And you can also find us on our podcast on podbean.com. All right. Anyway, I know I asked you guys to subscribe so that we could get up to about 15 subscribers. We did make it up to 12. We are going to still try to make it up to 15 and maybe add a couple more. But I would love to get up to about 20 subscribers by the end of March. So please like, comment, and yes, subscribe. It's great for the algorithm so that we can get this show in front of more eyeballs and ears. Anyway, that's it for us. Thank you for joining us for this broadcast from where I sit, and we will see you on our next broadcast, whenever that is. You guys have a great night.